Lieutenant John Russell's fingers trembled as he faced the alien's unexpected request. "Show private parts?" Aurora repeated, her blue skin shimmering in the alien sunlight. John's mind raced, weighing the implications of this moment for human-Orion relations against his own discomfort. Just days ago, John had been aboard the Starship Endeavour, embarking on a routine deep space exploration mission. Now he stood on the surface of an uncharted planet, the sole survivor of a catastrophic crash caused by an unexpected solar flare. The wreckage of the Endeavour lay scattered around him, a grim reminder of the colleagues he'd lost. As John scavenged the crash site for supplies, he encountered Aurora, an Orion female whose own ship had met a similar fate months earlier. The Orions, an advanced alien race known for their striking blue skin and telepathic abilities, had long avoided contact with humans due to deep-seated cultural taboos. Yet here they were, two beings from vastly different worlds, thrown together by circumstance and necessity. Desperate for survival, John and Aurora formed an uneasy alliance despite their species' mutual distrust. They established a makeshift camp near a freshwater source, combining salvaged human technology with Aurora's alien knowledge to create rudimentary shelter and tools. The days that followed were filled with tense silences and awkward attempts at communication as they struggled to overcome the language barrier and their ingrained prejudices. Their routine of survival was interrupted when John attempted to repair the Endeavour's damaged communications array. As he worked, Aurora watched with increasing curiosity. It was during this moment that she made her unexpected request, citing a scientific interest in human biology. John's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, maintaining professional boundaries seemed crucial in this delicate situation. On the other, this could be an opportunity to improve interspecies relations and foster understanding between their races. The weight of this decision pressed down on him, knowing that his choice could have far-reaching consequences. Unbeknownst to the stranded pair, both human and Orion search parties were en route to the planet. Each saw this unexpected first contact as a potential turning point in their species' Cold War. The future of human-Orion relations now hung in the balance, dependent on the outcome of this isolated encounter between two individuals from vastly different worlds. As John wrestled with Aurora's proposition, he couldn't shake the feeling that his next action would shape the course of history. The alien sun beat down on them, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. In this moment of truth, John took a deep breath and prepared to make his decision, knowing that whatever he chose would forever alter the relationship between their two species. John's heart raced as he considered Aurora's request. The fate of human-Orion relations seemed to rest on his shoulders. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "All right, Aurora," he said, his voice slightly unsteady. "I'll show you, but only for scientific purposes. We need to maintain professional boundaries." Aurora's large silvery eyes blinked in acknowledgement. John carefully rolled up his sleeve, exposing a patch of skin on his forearm. Aurora leaned in, her blue fingers hovering just above his skin. "Fascinating," she murmured, her limited English mixing with telepathic impressions that John felt more than heard. "Your epidermis, different texture, pigmentation varies." As Aurora studied his arm, John felt a slight tingling sensation. Her telepathic abilities seemed to enhance their communication, bridging the gap between their languages. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered. John lost his balance, stumbling into Aurora as the tremor intensified. Their makeshift shelter creaked ominously before collapsing in a shower of debris. "We need to move!" John shouted, grabbing Aurora's hand instinctively. They dashed away from the falling wreckage, dodging pieces of the Endeavour as they were shaken loose by the quake. When the tremor subsided, John and Aurora surveyed the damage. Their shelter was destroyed, and their carefully gathered supplies lay scattered across the alien landscape. "This is not good," Aurora said, her brow furrowed in concern. John nodded grimly. "We need to salvage what we can and find a safer location." They worked side by side, gathering the remains of their supplies. John marveled at Aurora's strength as she effortlessly lifted a large piece of the Endeavour's hull. In turn, Aurora seemed impressed by John's ingenuity as he rigged a makeshift cart from debris to transport their salvaged goods. As they searched for a new campsite, John noticed a dark opening in a nearby cliff face. "Aurora, look," he said, pointing. "A cave system. It might provide better shelter." They approached the cave entrance cautiously. John activated a salvage flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. As they ventured deeper, the walls seemed to shimmer with an odd metallic quality. "John," Aurora called, her voice echoing in the cavern. "Look at this." He turned to see her holding a small cylindrical object. It was clearly artificial, its surface covered in intricate swirling patterns that seemed to shift in the flashlight's beam. "An artifact," John breathed, reaching out to touch it. "This planet, it must have been inhabited." They spent the next few hours exploring the cave system, discovering more artifacts scattered throughout. Some seemed to be tools, others decorative objects, all clearly of non-human and non-Orion origin. As they set up their new camp in a large, dry cavern, John found himself relaxing in Aurora's presence. The initial awkwardness between them had faded, replaced by a growing sense of camaraderie. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine of exploration and camp improvement. During their downtime, they began to share stories of their respective cultures. "On Orion," Aurora explained one evening, her telepathic impressions painting vivid images in John's mind, "we have great floating cities. They drift through our world's vast oceans, harnessing thermal energy." John in turn told her about Earth's diverse landscapes and the concept of nation-states, which fascinated Aurora. He found himself opening up about his childhood in rural Kansas, the vast wheat fields swaying in the wind. Their peaceful coexistence was shattered when John fell ill. He had eaten a local plant, thinking it similar to something from Earth. Now he lay in their cave, racked with fever and nausea. Aurora hovered over him, her cool blue hand on his forehead. "John," she said, her voice tinged with worry, "your body temperature is dangerously elevated. I don't know how to help you." Through his delirium, John managed to describe some basic human first aid. Aurora worked tirelessly, using her limited knowledge and alien remedies to bring down his fever. She created a cooling paste from local plants, applying it to his skin, and used her telepathic abilities to help ease his discomfort. After 3 harrowing days, John's fever broke. He awoke to find Aurora slumped beside him, exhausted from her constant vigil. As he stirred, she jerked awake, her silver eyes wide with relief. "John, you're awake!" she exclaimed, grasping his hand. The gesture, so human in its nature, surprised them both. As John regained his strength, they resumed their exploration of the cave system. Deep in a previously unexplored tunnel, they discovered a large chamber housing a massive device. Its surface pulsed with a soft blue-green light. "What is it?" John wondered aloud, circling the device. Aurora shook her head, equally puzzled. "It's not Orion technology. Perhaps it's related to the artifacts we found." Curiosity overtook caution. John reached out, his fingers brushing against a glowing panel. The device hummed to life, energy crackling around it. Before they could react, a massive pulse of energy erupted from the machine, shooting upward through the cave ceiling. John and Aurora staggered back, shielding their eyes from the blinding light. As the pulse faded, they stared at each other in shock, the implications of what they'd done sinking in. "That pulse," John said, his voice hoarse. "It could be seen from space." Aurora nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It might lead to our rescue or bring unknown dangers." As they stood in the pulsing light of the alien device, John suddenly became acutely aware of Aurora's proximity. The boundaries between human and Orion seemed to blur as their eyes met. The air crackled with a tension that had nothing to do with the energy pulse they'd just witnessed. John found himself leaning closer to Aurora, drawn by a force he couldn't explain. Aurora's silver eyes widened, but she didn't pull away. Their faces were inches apart, the moment balanced on a knife's edge of possibility and uncertainty. Just then, a distant rumble echoed through the cave system, snapping them back to reality. Whether it was another tremor or something else entirely, they couldn't be sure. But as they hurried back towards their camp, both John and Aurora knew that everything had changed. Their isolation was likely coming to an end, and with it, the simple clarity of their shared struggle for survival. Whatever came next would test not only their newfound bond, but also the future of human-Orion relations. As they emerged from the cave into the alien twilight, the sky above them seemed alive with possibilities, both thrilling and terrifying. The alien twilight cast long shadows across the unfamiliar landscape as John and Aurora made their way back to the cave system. The distant rumble they had heard earlier seemed to have subsided, but a sense of urgency still propelled them forward. "We should investigate that sound," John said, his voice low. "It could be related to the energy pulse we triggered." Aurora nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light. "Agreed. There may be more to discover in the caves." As they ventured deeper into the winding tunnels, John's flashlight beam danced across the shimmering walls. The air grew cooler, and their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence. Suddenly, Aurora stopped, her hand grabbing John's arm. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, her telepathic impressions conveying a sense of anticipation. John paused, concentrating. There was a faint vibration in the air, barely perceptible but growing stronger with each step. They pressed on, following the sensation until they found themselves in a vast chamber they hadn't encountered before. The room was a marvel of alien architecture, its high ceiling lost in shadows. But what captured their attention was the structure at its center, a massive crystalline formation that pulsed with a soft bluish light. Smaller devices of unknown purpose surrounded it, their surfaces covered in the same intricate shifting patterns they had seen on the artifacts. John's engineering instincts kicked in as he circled the crystal. "This is incredible," he breathed, his mind racing with possibilities. "The energy output from this thing. Aurora, I think we might be able to use this to amplify our distress signal." Aurora moved closer to examine one of the smaller devices. "These seem familiar somehow," she mused, "as if they're calling to me." As they studied the alien technology, John reached out to touch the crystal's surface. At the same moment, Aurora's hand brushed against his. A sudden jolt of energy surged through their bodies, causing them both to gasp and stumble backward. John's vision swam, his mind flooded with a kaleidoscope of images and sensations. He saw flashes of a world with purple skies and floating cities. Orion, he realized with a start. He felt Aurora's wonder at Earth's vast oceans, her curiosity about human culture. Did you feel that?" John asked, his voice shaky. Aurora nodded, her eyes wide. "Your thoughts, your memories. I saw them, John. How is this possible?" Before they could process what had happened, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Small pebbles skittered across the floor as the vibrations intensified. "We need to get out of here," John shouted over the growing rumble. Aurora was already moving, her hands flying over the alien devices. "We can't leave this behind," she said, her thoughts echoing in John's mind with surprising clarity. "Help me disconnect the crystal." Working together with a newfound synchronicity, they managed to detach the crystal structure and several smaller devices. The psychic link that had formed between them allowed them to anticipate each other's movements, making their efforts far more efficient than they would have been just hours ago. As they gathered the last of the salvageable technology, a deafening crack split the air. Chunks of rock began to rain down from the ceiling, the entire cave system groaning under the strain of the powerful tremors. "Run!" John yelled, hefting the crystal structure onto his shoulder. They sprinted through the collapsing tunnels, their path illuminated by the crystal's pulsing light. The new connection between them proved invaluable as they navigated the treacherous passageways. John instinctively ducked as Aurora mentally warned him of a falling boulder, while Aurora sidestepped a widening fissure in the floor, based on John's quick observation. After what seemed like an eternity of dodging debris and leaping over chasms, they burst out of the cave entrance into the open air. They didn't stop running until they were a safe distance away, finally collapsing onto the ground, panting heavily. As they caught their breath, John and Aurora took in their surroundings. The landscape had changed dramatically. Their campsite was gone, swallowed by a newly formed ravine. The alien sun was rising, casting an orange glow over the altered terrain. "We need to find a new shelter," Aurora said, her thoughts tinged with concern. John nodded, still marveling at the ease with which he could sense her emotions. Let's head for that ridge, he suggested, pointing to a line of hills in the distance. We might find a defensible position there. As they trekked across the changed landscape, John's mind raced with possibilities. He examined the crystal structure they had salvaged, noting its complex internal geometry. I think I can modify this to boost our distress signal, he said aloud, his excitement bleeding through their link. If we can integrate it with the Endeavor's communications array, we might be able to reach far beyond this solar system. Aurora, who had been studying one of the smaller devices, looked up with a start. John, I think I can interface with these, she said, her mental voice filled with wonder. There's so much data here. The history of this planet, the civilization that built these machines. They set up their new camp on a plateau overlooking a vast, newly formed valley. As John worked to connect the crystal to their salvaged equipment, Aurora delved deeper into the alien data stores, her telepathic abilities enhanced by their psychic link. Hours passed as they worked, the alien sun arcing across the sky. Their connection deepened with each passing moment, stray thoughts and emotions flowing freely between them. John found himself captivated by Aurora's memories of Orion, while she marveled at the complexity of human social structures. As night fell, John made the final adjustments to their makeshift transmitter. I think it's ready, he said, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Should we do this? Aurora nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the crystal's pulsing light. Do it. John flipped the switch and the crystal structure hummed to life. Energy crackled around it, building to a crescendo before shooting skyward in a brilliant beam of light. The burst of power was far more intense than they had anticipated, and they shielded their eyes from the blinding flash. As the light faded, they looked at each other in awe and trepidation. The signal had been sent, but what consequences would it bring? Their thoughts mingled, a mixture of hope for rescue and fear of the unknown. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shift. In the valley below, strange structures started to emerge from the earth, glowing with the same ethereal light as the crystal. The very air seemed to shimmer and change, taking on a faintly iridescent quality. What have we done? Aurora whispered, her mental voice echoing John's own concern. As they watched the landscape transform around them, John and Aurora stood close together, their hands instinctively intertwining. The lines between human and Orion seemed to blur as they faced this new development, united by their shared experiences and the intimate connection they now shared. Little did they know that high above the planet's surface, their signal had been detected. Multiple factions were now converging on their location, each with their own agenda. The fate of John and Aurora, the alien technology, and the future of human-Orion relations hung in the balance as the alien sun sank below the horizon, heralding the arrival of an uncertain night. Dawn. The alien sun's first rays painted the transformed landscape in hues of amber and gold, illuminating the newly emerged structures that now dotted the valley below. John and Aurora exchanged a glance, their shared thoughts a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Without a word, they began their descent into the valley, drawn by the enigmatic glow of the alien constructs. As they approached the nearest structure, its surface shimmered with an iridescent light, patterns shifting and swirling beneath a crystalline exterior. John reached out, his fingers hovering just above the structure's surface. It's warm, he murmured, surprise coloring his thoughts. And there's a faint vibration. Aurora nodded, her silver eyes scanning the alien architecture. These structures, they're connected somehow. Can you feel it? John closed his eyes, focusing on the subtle sensations flowing through their psychic link. He could sense a network of energy pulsing beneath their feet, connecting each structure in a complex web. As they explored further, a massive crystalline dome loomed before them, dwarfing the surrounding structures. Its surface pulsed with a soft blue-white light, drawing them inexorably closer. This must be some kind of control center, Aurora said, her mental voice tinged with awe. They circled the dome, searching for an entrance. John's hand brushed against a panel, and suddenly a section of the crystal wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a passage into the structure's interior. Inside, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and pulsing crystalline consoles. At the center stood a towering pillar of light, its energy spiraling upward into the dome's apex. John approached one of the consoles, his engineering instincts taking over. This interface, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. As Aurora joined him, the console suddenly flared to life, responding to their presence. Streams of data flowed across the holographic displays, too fast for human eyes to follow. "It's reacting to us," Aurora said, her fingers hovering over the shimmering controls, "to our combined biosignatures." John nodded, his mind racing with implications. But why? How could this ancient technology recognize both human and Orion physiology? Before Aurora could respond, the central pillar of light pulsed intensely. John and Aurora's psychic link surged, overwhelming their senses. They staggered, clutching each other for support as a flood of images and sensations washed over them. They saw a civilization of beings, neither human nor Orion, yet somehow familiar. Vast cities floating among the stars, ships that could traverse galaxies in the blink of an eye. They witnessed the rise of this ancient race, their mastery of energy and matter, and then the vision shifted, showing a cataclysmic event, a tear in the fabric of space-time, unleashing energies beyond comprehension. The ancient civilization, despite all their power, was unable to stop it. In a high-stakes endeavor, they scattered their essence across the cosmos, seeding worlds with their knowledge and technology. As the vision faded, John and Aurora found themselves on their knees, gasping for breath. Their psychic link hummed with newfound intensity, thoughts and emotions flowing between them with startling clarity. "Did you see?" John began, his voice hoarse. Aurora nodded, her silver eyes wide. "They were our ancestors, both human and Orion." As they struggled to process this revelation, a low hum filled the chamber. The consoles around them flared to life, holographic displays showing a schematic of the planet. "John," Aurora said, her mental voice filled with urgency, "I think we've activated something." The schematic zoomed out, revealing a massive energy field forming around the planet. Alarms blared from the consoles, warning messages flashing in an alien script that John and Aurora could somehow understand. "It's a defense system," John realized, his fingers flying over the controls. "We need to shut it down before—" A thunderous boom echoed through the dome, cutting off John's words. The ground beneath them shook, dust and crystal shards raining down from above. "What was that?" Aurora asked, scanning the displays. John's face paled as he deciphered the incoming data. "It's a ship. It managed to land just before the defense field fully activated." As they worked frantically to deactivate the planetary defense system, neither of them noticed the approaching footsteps. The first sign of danger came as a series of shouts echoed through the crystalline corridors. "Over here! I see movement!" John and Aurora spun around, their hearts racing. Through the translucent walls of the dome, they could make out the silhouettes of armed figures moving swiftly towards them. "We need to hide," John whispered, his thoughts echoing through their link. Aurora nodded, her eyes scanning the chamber. "There," she said, pointing to a hidden alcove behind one of the larger consoles. They ducked into the hiding spot just as the intruders burst into the central chamber. Through their psychic link, John and Aurora shared a mix of fear and perseverance. They knew they had to find a way to deactivate the defense system and deal with these unexpected arrivals. As they huddled in the shadows, the leader of the group stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "Secure the perimeter. Find them." John and Aurora exchanged a glance, their thoughts aligned. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. John's eyes darted around the chamber, searching for a solution. His gaze fell upon a small, cylindrical device nestled among the alien consoles. Recognition flickered through their shared consciousness. "The enhancement device," Aurora whispered, her thoughts echoing John's realization. Without hesitation, they moved towards it, their movements perfectly synchronized. As Vance's team spread out through the chamber, John grasped the device, its smooth surface humming with latent energy. "It's our only chance," he said, meeting Aurora's silver gaze. She nodded, placing her hand over his. Together, they activated the alien technology, A wave of shimmering energy engulfed them, penetrating every cell of their bodies. John gasped as his senses sharpened, his muscles surging with newfound strength. Beside him, Aurora's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, her lithe form radiating power. The leader of the intruders, Vance, spotted them. "There they are! Take them down!" John and Aurora moved with blinding speed, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to dodge the incoming fire. They weaved through the crystalline structures, closing the distance to their attackers in mere seconds. John disarmed the first soldier with a swift, precise strike, the man's weapon clattering to the ground. Aurora vaulted over a console, her legs sweeping out in a graceful arc that sent two more intruders sprawling. Their movements were a dance of strength and agility, their psychic link allowing them to anticipate each other's actions perfectly. Within moments, Vance's team lay incapacitated, their weapons secured, and their forms bound with makeshift restraints. Vance himself struggled against John's grip, his face contorted with rage. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he spat. "Neither do you," John replied, his voice tinged with the power coursing through him. With the immediate threat neutralized, John and Aurora returned to the main control interface. Their fingers flew over the alien controls, their enhanced minds processing the complex data streams with ease. "The defense system," Aurora said, her thoughts intertwining with John's. "We need to shut it down." They worked in perfect harmony, their amplified psychic link allowing them to understand the alien technology on an intuitive level. As they made the final adjustments, the energy barrier surrounding the planet began to flicker and fade. John felt a surge of triumph as the defense system powered down. "We did it!" he breathed, turning to Aurora. Their eyes met, and suddenly the air between them crackled with tension. The alien enhancements had heightened every sensation, every emotion. Aurora's silver skin seemed to glow, her alien features captivating in their otherworldly beauty. Without a word, they came together, their lips meeting in a passionate embrace. The intensity of their connection, amplified by the alien technology, was overwhelming. John marveled at the feeling of Aurora's smooth, metallic skin against his, every touch sending electric shivers through his enhanced nervous system. Their moment of intimacy was shattered by the sound of approaching engines. Through the crystalline walls, they saw two ships descending, one human, one Orion. "Admiral Chen," John said, recognizing the insignia on the human vessel. "And Matriarch Zara," Aurora added, her voice tinged with apprehension. They quickly separated, their bodies still glowing faintly from the effects of the enhancement. As the ships landed and their leaders emerged, John and Aurora stood side by side, facing the newcomers with a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Admiral Chen's eyes widened as he took in the scene. The incapacitated soldiers, the alien technology, and the strange glow emanating from John and Aurora. "What in God's name is going on here, Carson?" he demanded. Matriarch Zara's multifaceted eyes narrowed as she focused on Aurora. "Explain yourself, child. Why have you interfaced with this human technology?" John felt a surge of protectiveness through their link. He stepped forward, his enhanced physique radiating strength. "With all due respect, Admiral, Matriarch, we've discovered something here that could change everything. We can't let this become a conflict between our species." As if in response to his words, the ground beneath them trembled. New energy readings flared across the alien consoles, indicating the awakening of hidden structures across the planet's surface. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing in intensity. Through the dome's translucent walls, they saw swarms of metallic objects rising from the ground, their forms sleek and deadly. "Guardians," Aurora whispered, her enhanced senses picking up the ancient programming, activating within the robotic swarms. As the Guardians converged on their location, John and Aurora exchanged a determined look. They had faced challenges before, but nothing like this. With their enhanced abilities fading, the alien technology still not fully understood, and tensions high between the human and Orion forces, they knew the real test was just beginning. The fate of two species and the secrets of an ancient civilization now hung in the balance, and John and Aurora stood at the center of it all, their hands clasped tightly together as they prepared to face whatever came next. The swarm of metallic guardians descended upon the crystalline dome, their sleek forms glinting in the alien sunlight. John and Aurora exchanged a determined look, their minds racing in unison through their psychic link. "We need to act fast," John said, his enhanced senses picking up the high-pitched whine of the approaching guardians. Aurora nodded, her silver eyes scanning the alien consoles. "If we can interface with their programming, we might be able to halt their advance." Without wasting a moment, John began gathering components from the surrounding technology. His fingers moved with preternatural speed, assembling a makeshift transmitter from the alien devices they had encountered earlier. "Admiral, Matriarch," he called out, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We need time. Can your forces hold off the Guardians?" Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara exchanged a brief glance before nodding in agreement. They quickly issued orders to their respective teams, creating a defensive perimeter around the dome. As the sounds of energy weapons and shouted commands filled the air, John completed his jury-rigged device. He turned to Aurora, who had positioned herself at the main control interface. "Ready?" he asked, handing her the transmitter. Aurora took a deep breath, her metallic skin shimmering with tension. "Here goes nothing." She closed her eyes, focusing her telepathic abilities on the approaching swarm. John watched in awe as her form seemed to glow, the alien energy still coursing through her veins, amplifying her natural talents. The transmitter in Aurora's hands pulsed with energy, sending out waves of data that interacted with the Guardian's programming. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, just as the first of the robotic sentinels reached the dome's perimeter, the entire swarm came to an abrupt halt. John let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "It worked," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Aurora opened her eyes, a tired smile on her face. "They're waiting for instructions. We've managed to override their hostile protocols, at least temporarily." The sudden silence was deafening. Human and Orion forces alike lowered their weapons, staring in amazement at the motionless Guardians hovering mere meters away. Taking advantage of the lull, John stepped forward, addressing the gathered leaders. "Admiral Chen, Matriarch Zara, we need to talk. What we've discovered here, it's bigger than any conflict between our species." As John began to explain the potential of the alien technology, the ground beneath them trembled. New energy readings flared across the alien consoles, indicating the awakening of hidden structures across the planet's surface. "What's happening?" Admiral Chen demanded, steadying himself against a crystal pillar. Aurora's fingers flew across the holographic displays. "The planet itself is reacting to the activated technology. There are massive structures rising from beneath the surface." Through the translucent walls of the dome, they watched in awe as colossal buildings began to emerge from the ground. Spires of shimmering metal and crystal pushed their way skyward, forming the skeleton of a vast hidden city. "We need to find the central control hub," John said, his enhanced mind quickly analyzing the unfolding situation. "If we can access it, we might be able to stabilize the planet's transformation." Matriarch Zara's multifaceted eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic displays. "There," she said, pointing to a massive pyramid-like structure at the center of the emerging city. "That appears to be the nexus of the energy readings." As the seismic activity intensified, John and Aurora led the combined human and Orion forces towards the central structure. The ground shook beneath their feet, fissures opening up in the alien landscape. They reached the pyramid just as a particularly violent tremor threatened to throw them off balance. John placed his hand on the structure's smooth surface, and a hidden entrance slid open, revealing a vast control room filled with advanced technology. "Quickly," Aurora called out, already moving towards the main interface. "We need to stabilize the planet's geological activity before it tears itself apart." John joined her at the controls, their hands moving in perfect synchronization as they navigated the alien systems. Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara stood behind them, offering guidance based on their own specialized knowledge. As the four worked together, the tremors began to subside. Holographic displays showed the planet's geological activity returning to normal levels, the massive structures settling into their new configurations. "We did it," Admiral Chen said, a note of respect in his voice as he looked at John and Aurora. Matriarch Zara nodded in agreement. Perhaps there is more to be gained through cooperation than conflict. As the immediate crisis passed, John began to explore the control room, his curiosity piqued by the advanced technology surrounding them. His hand brushed against an inconspicuous panel, and suddenly, a hidden chamber revealed itself. "Aurora, look at this!" he called out, peering into the newly opened space. Inside the chamber stood a cylindrical pod, its surface covered in intricate designs. As they approached, a soft blue light emanated from within, illuminating the form of a humanoid figure suspended in stasis. "Is that—" Aurora's voice trailed off, her eyes wide with wonder. John nodded, his heart racing. A member of the ancient civilization that built all this, perfectly preserved. As they debated how to proceed with this monumental discovery, the control room suddenly came to life. Holographic projectors activated, filling the air with shimmering light that coalesced into the form of an alien being. The holographic figure began to speak, its voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "Greetings, children of Earth and Orion. If you are witnessing this message, then our long-dormant systems have finally awakened." John and Aurora listened in rapt attention as the hologram recounted the history of the ancient civilization. The alien beings had once been a great spacefaring race, exploring and colonizing vast swaths of the galaxy, but their advanced technology and prolonged exposure to the rigors of space had come at a cost. "Our species faced extinction," the hologram continued, its voice tinged with sorrow. "Genetic degradation caused by our interstellar travels and colonization efforts slowly eroded our ability to adapt and survive." The message went on to explain that the ancient aliens had foreseen the eventual arrival of both humans and Orions. They had specifically designed their technology to be compatible with the biology of both species, hoping that together they might unlock the secrets to saving the ancient race. As the holographic message faded, a profound silence fell over the control room. Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara exchanged a long look, the implications of what they had just learned sinking in. "It seems," Admiral Chen said slowly, "that we have a greater purpose here than we realized." Matriarch Zara nodded, her expression thoughtful. "The fate of this ancient civilization, and perhaps the future of our own species, depends on our ability to work together." John and Aurora stood side by side, their hands almost touching as they processed the magnitude of the revelation. Their unique bond, forged through their shared experiences and enhanced by the alien technology, seemed more significant than ever. As the immediate danger subsided and plans began to form for a joint human-Orion research initiative, John found himself acutely aware of Aurora's presence beside him. The high-stakes environment and their intensified connection had only served to deepen his attraction to her. Aurora met his gaze, her silver eyes reflecting a similar inner turmoil. They both knew that their growing feelings for each other would complicate the already complex situation they found themselves in. As Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara discussed the formation of a joint research team, John and Aurora shared a private moment. "Whatever happens," John said softly, his fingers brushing against Aurora's hand, "we're in this together." Aurora nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her voice. "A new chapter for both our species and for us." Their moment was interrupted as Admiral Chen called them over. "John, Aurora, we'll need you both to play key roles in this joint operation. Your unique abilities and understanding of the alien technology make you invaluable to this mission." As preparations began for extended operations on the planet, John and Aurora found themselves at the center of a new interspecies endeavor. The challenges ahead were daunting, but the potential rewards were beyond imagination. With the secrets of an ancient civilization waiting to be unlocked and the future of human-Orion relations hanging in the balance, they knew that their journey was just beginning. The weight of their newfound responsibility settled over John and Aurora as they exchanged a meaningful glance. In the weeks that followed, the joint human-Orion research team established a base of operations within the alien city. John and Aurora found themselves at the forefront of the investigation, their unique bond and combined expertise proving invaluable in deciphering the ancient civilization's advanced systems. One particularly fruitful day, as they explored a newly uncovered section of the city, John's enhanced senses picked up an anomaly. Aurora, do you feel that? He asked, his hand hovering over a seemingly blank wall. Aurora closed her eyes, focusing her telepathic abilities. Yes, there's something different about this area. Their fingers moved in unison, tracing invisible patterns on the wall's surface. Suddenly, a hidden door slid open, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft, pulsating light. Incredible, John breathed, stepping into the room. At its center stood a device similar to the one that had initially enhanced their abilities, but this version was sleeker, more advanced. Aurora approached it cautiously, her silver eyes widening. John, I think this is a prototype, a more advanced version of the enhancement device we used before. After careful deliberation and consultation with Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara, John and Aurora volunteered to test the device. Their prior experience made them the ideal candidates, and the potential benefits to the research effort were too significant to ignore. As they stepped onto the platform, John reached out and took Aurora's hand. Ready? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Aurora nodded, her metallic skin shimmering with anticipation. Together, she replied. The device hummed to life, enveloping them in a cocoon of energy. John felt a surge of power coursing through his body, his muscles tightening and his senses sharpening beyond anything he'd experienced before. Beside him, Aurora gasped, her form seeming to glow from within. When the process ended, they stumbled off the platform, supporting each other. John marveled at the strength in his limbs, the clarity of his vision, but it was the change in his connection with Aurora that truly astonished him. Their psychic link had evolved into something far more profound. John could feel Aurora's thoughts, her emotions, as if they were his own. Images and sensations flowed between them, creating a shared consciousness that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. This is incredible, Aurora said, her voice filled with wonder. John nodded, unable to form words as he processed the flood of information from their neural interface. Their enhanced abilities were put to the test sooner than expected. As they made their way back to the main research area, alarms blared throughout the complex. John and Aurora sprinted towards the source of the commotion, their movements perfectly synchronized. They arrived at the stasis pod chamber to find a scene of chaos. The pod containing the preserved alien was malfunctioning, its life support systems failing rapidly. We need to stabilize it now, or we'll lose our only link to the creators of this technology, Dr. Emilia Reyes, the lead xenobiologist, shouted over the alarms. Without hesitation, John and Aurora approached the pod. Their enhanced minds quickly analyzed the alien systems, their neural link allowing them to process information at an unprecedented rate. There, John said, pointing to a flickering control panel. We need to reroute power from the auxiliary systems. Aurora was already moving, her fingers dancing across the alien interface. John joined her, their movements perfectly coordinated. As they worked, John became acutely aware of Aurora's presence beside him. The scent of her skin, the warmth of her body, the rhythm of her breath, all of it amplified by their neural connection. Focus, he told himself, pushing aside the distracting thoughts. But he could feel a similar turmoil in Aurora's mind, their growing attraction impossible to ignore in the face of their deepened bond. With a final surge of energy, the stasis pod stabilized. The alarms fell silent, replaced by a collective sigh of relief from the assembled research team. Dr. Reyes approached John and Aurora, her eyes wide with admiration. That was incredible. How did you interface with the system so quickly? John and Aurora exchanged a glance, their neural link buzzing with shared thoughts and emotions. It's difficult to explain, Aurora began. Before she could continue, a new alarm sounded. The stasis pod's revival sequence had been triggered. It's opening, someone shouted. The research team watched in awe as the pod's translucent cover slid open, revealing the form of a female alien. Her skin was a pale lavender, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change. Slowly her eyes opened, revealing irises of swirling silver and gold. The alien's gaze focused on John and Aurora, recognition flickering in her otherworldly eyes. When she spoke, her voice was melodic and layered with harmonics. You have awakened me, she said, her words somehow understood by all present. I am Zix, last of the architects. And you? She looked directly at John and Aurora. You carry our legacy within you. As Zix's words hung in the air, the alien city around them began to pulse with new life. Systems long dormant flickered to life, holographic displays blossoming throughout the complex. John and Aurora stood at the center of it all, their hands intertwined, their minds racing in unison as they faced the next challenge in their extraordinary journey. The awakening of Zix and the reactivation of the alien systems promised new discoveries, but also new dangers. As the city hummed with awakening power, they knew their enhanced abilities would be put to the ultimate test. As they confronted the challenges that lay ahead. The city's newly awakened systems pulsed with energy, casting an ethereal glow throughout the complex. John and Aurora, their enhanced senses attuned to every fluctuation in the alien technology, quickly realized that not all was as it should be. "Something's wrong," Aurora said, her silver eyes scanning the holographic displays that flickered around them. "These power surges? They're not natural." John nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. "Someone's interfering with the systems. But who?" Their answer came in the form of a distant explosion that shook the foundations of the city. Alarms blared, and the neural link between John and Aurora flared with shared concern and dedication. "Vance," they said in unison, their suspicions confirmed through their telepathic connection. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm system. "John, Aurora, we've detected unauthorized access to the city's defensive systems. It's Vance. He's holed up in the central control hub." Without hesitation, John and Aurora sprang into action. Their movements were fluid and synchronized as they navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of the alien city. The neural link between them allowed for instantaneous communication and coordination, their thoughts and actions perfectly aligned. As they approached the central hub, they encountered the first wave of activated defenses. Energy barriers sprang to life, and automated turrets emerged from hidden compartments in the walls. John's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge a barrage of energy blasts, while Aurora used her Orion abilities to short-circuit a nearby control panel. The barrier before them flickered and died, allowing them to push forward. "We're getting close," John said, his voice low and focused. "I can sense the power fluctuations getting stronger." Aurora nodded, her metallic skin shimmering with anticipation. "Be ready for anything. Vance is desperate, and that makes him dangerous." As they approached the central chamber, they heard Vance's voice, tense and urgent. "No, you don't understand. The humans and Orions cannot be allowed to access this technology. It will upset the balance of power in the galaxy." John and Aurora exchanged a glance, their neural link buzzing with shared realization. Vance wasn't working alone. There was a larger conspiracy at play. Without warning, they burst into the room. Vance whirled around, his eyes wide with surprise and fury. In his hands, he clutched an alien weapon, its surface pulsing with awe-inspiring energy. "You're too late," Vance snarled, leveling the weapon at them. "I won't let you destroy everything we've worked for." The air crackled with tension as John and Aurora faced off against Vance. Their enhanced abilities allowed them to anticipate his movements, dodging and weaving as he unleashed devastating blasts of energy. Through their neural link, John and Aurora coordinated their attacks with uncanny precision. Aurora used her telepathic abilities to distract Vance, while John looked for an opening to disarm him. In a critical moment, Vance managed to lock onto Aurora, his finger tightening on the trigger. Without hesitation, John threw himself in front of her. The energy blast caught him in the shoulder, searing his skin and sending waves of pain through their shared consciousness. Aurora, feeling John's agony as if it were her own, let out a cry of anguish and rage. Channeling her Orion abilities, she reached out with her mind, interfacing directly with the alien weapon. For a moment, the device sputtered and went dark. Seizing the opportunity, John lunged forward, ignoring the burning pain in his shoulder. He tackled Vance to the ground, the alien weapon clattering across the floor. As they grappled, Aurora moved to secure the weapon. Vance, realizing his plan was unraveling, fought with desperate strength. But he was no match for John's enhanced abilities. Just as John pinned Vance to the ground, the doors to the central chamber burst open. Admiral Chen and Matriarch Zara strode in, flanked by a joint security team of humans and Orions. "Secure the prisoner," Admiral Chen ordered, his voice firm and authoritative. As Vance was led away, John and Aurora turned their attention to the city's systems. Working in perfect harmony, they interfaced with the alien technology, their combined knowledge and the strength of their neural link proving invaluable. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, revealing the vast archives of scientific knowledge and technological advancements left behind by the ancient civilization. The potential of what they had uncovered was staggering. Zix, the revived alien scientist, approached them, her otherworldly eyes gleaming with approval. "You have done well," she said, her melodic voice filled with gratitude. "With your help, we can now begin to unlock the full potential of our legacy." As the immediate crisis subsided, John and Aurora found themselves at the center of a new era of human-Orion cooperation. Their unique bond had become a symbol of what could be achieved through understanding and collaboration between their species. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly alongside Zix and the joint research team, delving deeper into the mysteries of the ancient alien technology. Though their enhanced abilities gradually began to fade, their neural link remained, a permanent connection that bound them together. As they stood before a massive holographic display, reviewing the latest findings, John turned to Aurora. Her silver eyes met his, and through their link he felt a surge of emotions, excitement, hope, and something deeper, more personal. "We've come so far," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand. Aurora nodded, her metallic skin shimmering in the soft light of the alien city. "And yet, I feel like we're just at the beginning." Their fingers intertwined, human and Orion, a living embodiment of the new future they were helping to forge. As the city hummed with awakening power around them, John and Aurora knew that their journey and the challenges that lay ahead were just getting started.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.